Kier Starmer and his government are threatening the medical professionals that are supporting Tommy Robinson. I find this completely shocking, and it's something that all of us need to worry about. We need to be like NATO, in that if you attack one of us, you attack all of us. Hello everyone, this is Andre Walker. Thanks so much for watching this video. Once again, it is sponsored by G Live TV Podcast. The link is in the description. They're launching on Saturday with me and Viscount Monkton and loads of other people. Please do subscribe in advance of that launch so we can have the launch day really successful. Anyway, there's been a big update from Tommy Robinson's team today, and it talks about PTSD, and it talks about reduction of rations, and it talks about ADHD, and all of those things that are starting to become a major problem. And they're complaining that he's been in solitary confinement now, sitting locked up for 22 hours a day, talking to nobody for something like 130 days. But this video actually isn't about that, though I think it's extremely important. It's about a tweet that's in the description. There's a lady called Julia Taylor, 1972, on Twitter. She's a mental health nurse, a psychiatric nurse with 23 years experience, I think is the number that she gave. And she has gone through all of the things that she thinks makes Tommy Robinson's treatment in prison cruel and unusual. Once again, I say the link is in the description. Take a look at it, see what you think. I've never met Julia Taylor, but I can tell from what she's saying that she's on the level and she's telling the truth. Now, what is interesting is the way that she's been threatened with all sorts of complaints, being struck off, no longer being able to be a nurse. And the reason I say that Starmer's government is behind it is because we're increasingly finding that the people who are running campaigns like this are what I used to call trade union pilgrims. And they are people who are supposed to be nurses, but actually instead work as full-time trade union officials. That's right. When somebody pays their fee to Unison of whatever amount they pay, Unison provide them with a number of things. One of them is their workplace representation, or at least Unison pretend to provide that. Actually, the taxpayer provides it instead. It was something that the Conservative government under David Cameron, Conservative government under Kier Starmer was a right Freudian slip, wasn't it? The Conservative government under David Cameron looked at getting rid of. I was involved in something called the Trade Union Reform Campaign, which sought to make trade unions genuinely independent and get rid of these pilgrims, these government-funded trade union officials. But as usual, David Cameron decided not to do it. By the way, they're called trade union pilgrims. They were named after nurse Jane Pilgrim, who was a trade union official, full-time trade union official, who met with Andrew Lansley in the run-up to the 2010 general election. She pretended she was working as a nurse, appeared on the front page of the Evening Standard saying that Lansley was a liar. And of course, she'd failed to mention she was a full-time trade union official. Now, you've got to remember one thing. We can make videos all day about one person. You can make a video about Nigel Farage. You can make a video about Tommy Robinson. You can make a video about Donald Trump, JD Vance, whoever you want. And those videos do phenomenally well. But actually, it's people like Julia Taylor who are actually at the coalface trying to fight for freedom and decency and democracy every single day. You know, if we put up a picture of her and we start talking about her, then we're not going to get anywhere. People won't click those links. But I think we do have to start saying that we have to start being more supportive of people like that. Because, you know, in the professions, we have seen this diversity, equity and inclusion push out lots of people, but there's a far larger number of people who are afraid to say what they think. I've got a very good friend of mine, and he introduced me to his 14-year-old son and their mates who were down the pub after rugby one day. And it was quite interesting chatting to these young lads about the way they get treated at school, where they're not allowed to be honest about their views. They're not allowed to have a genuine discussion in the classroom. What they have to do is when they go home, be much more honest. And that is something that worries me. Because look, many of you are wealthier, let's be honest. Many of my viewers are older. You're not people generally who are now building a career and have to worry too much about being pushed out of a teaching job or a job in the City of London or whatever. And that is why you can be as belligerent as you are being. But that's not the majority of people. And we have to constantly stand up. And what I want you to do, I want you to retweet this tweet below, which is from Julia Taylor, so we can tell the world about her professional views. Let's make her a little bit more famous, because there's no point in having the lightning rod of someone like Tommy Robinson and not supporting people who are out and about more generally. By the way, I want to say in closing here, well done to everybody who's keeping the fire of freedom burning. The Tommy Robinson update, for those of you that haven't seen it elsewhere, and I imagine that's not many of you, he is 128 days in solitary confinement, 22 hours a day locked up. He's facing an 18-month prison sentence. He now has an independent clinical psychologist with a doctorate and 15 years in forensic mental health. And this person, sorry, I don't know it's a she, this person has said it's mental torture. They're saying he's got ADHD and complex post-traumatic stress disorder. Solitary confinement, it is a she actually, solitary confinement is directly relating to reactivating his past PTSD due to a similar environment. He's having difficulty coping, and this is exacerbating ADHD, and his mental state is deteriorating. Dark dreams and cold sweats jolt me awake at night at 3 a.m. I'm paranoid, helpless, and continue to panic about my kids. This is a deliberate attempt to kill the man. I've made this point on plenty of occasions. No medical professional in this country that I've seen has said that what Tommy Robinson is going through is anything other than torture. Nobody that I've talked to privately in the prison service thinks he should be there. Nobody I've spoken to in the judiciary thinks he should be there. This is a complete and total joke. And I'm going to warn the police, and I'm going to warn the Home Office. You know, the worst thing you can do, even though you think it's a great idea, the worst thing you can do is kill this man. You pour petrol on the flames. When they always say, don't the messenger, I have to say that is precisely what the Home Office and what the government and what Kier Starmer and what the police are trying to do. And I have to say, and I've always said from this chair sitting here, that we have to actually address the concerns of society and the concerns of the public. Simply crushing one man is not the solution. And do you know something? The other day I watched Mr. Bates versus the Post Office, and it's exactly the same story, where what they try and do is crush people one by one in order to prevent the actual issue being discussed. And we've seen it so many times. Public officials did not want to admit the Horizon computer system at the Post Office didn't work. And they don't want to admit that multiculturalism isn't working. So what they do is they smash Bates and they smash Robinson. But actually, I think the other part of the story of Mr. Bates is this. Now that there is a much more pluralistic media environment, we can start to tell the truth much more readily than we did before. And I think that is something that is absolutely vital for what we are doing here today. Please do support G Live TV, which launches on Saturday, and please do take a look at what Julia Taylor says. And I want to say to Julia, email at andrewalker.uk if you want to send me your details. If you are bullied or threatened, we'll do something about it. I don't claim to be the biggest I am in the world, but the one thing I've never done is back down, and I'm never going to. And so if we need to raise money for legal fees, we'll raise money for legal fees. If I have to stand next to you in the court, if I have to be your lawyer. Do you know what? I'm going to tell you something quite funny. I've started defending people who are getting beaten up by their employers and by public bodies. And okay, I'm not a lawyer. By the way, I'm not like Jonathan Reynolds. I'm not going to pretend to be a lawyer in order just to make it look good on my CV. But I've worked in Parliament. I've worked in regulatory affairs. Therefore, I think I've got some legal knowledge, certainly enough. Well, certainly more than your average solicitor down the street. So I'm thinking of actually qualifying as a solicitor, or at least trying to. I just can't work out how to do it without working in the firm and not setting up my own. But if I could become a solicitor and qualify, then I'm going to do it and offer loads more free legal advice to people. And I'll tell you one thing that's really great. When I turn up to represent people at hearings, very often the bad guys recognise me and really aren't looking forward to what they get. And what they get is authentic and vintage Leandre, pretty aggressive, pretty robust out the door. And we take the bullies and kick them. Okay, that is all I've got to say for now. Until next time, goodbye.